Every relationship is a tapestry woven from the threads of shared moments, laughter, and dreams. Yet beneath that beautiful surface lies a fragile balance, a delicate interplay between love and individuality. I once believed that love meant being each other's priority, but my experience with Sarah taught me otherwise. Sarah and I were inseparable at the beginning. We shared countless late-night conversations, spontaneous road trips, and a connection that felt unbreakable. But over time, a rift began to form, a slow erosion of our bond, as I noticed a pattern in her behavior. It seemed that no matter how much I tried to prioritize our relationship, Sarah consistently placed her friendships at the forefront, leaving me feeling like a secondary character in the story of her life. It was a feeling that gnawed at me, making me question my worth and our future together. Our disagreements became more frequent, fueled by my growing frustration and a longing for deeper connection. I often found myself grappling with the nagging belief that love should mean being each other's number one. That night, after an explosive argument that echoed with unspoken hurt, I made the decision to walk away. I believed I was doing what was best for both of us, choosing to end a relationship that no longer seemed to thrive. Months passed, and life continued on its chaotic path. Yet it wasn't until a close friend of mine faced a crisis that my understanding of love would be challenged once more. As I navigated this emotional landscape, I couldn't shake the memories of what we had shared. The laughter, the dreams, and even the arguments. All of it echoed in my mind like a haunting refrain. I began to wonder if I had made a mistake by walking away. This journey of introspection set the stage for my eventual outreach to Sarah, where I hoped to find clarity and perhaps even a path to reconciliation. But the lessons learned would reveal that love is a complex tapestry, rich with threads of friendship, understanding, and acceptance. Join me as I unravel this story, a tale of love, loss, and the unexpected ways life teaches us about connection and commitment. It's a journey that not only transformed my understanding of love, but also led me to discover new happiness and deeper connections. The night of the argument with Sarah was one I'll never forget. It started like any other evening, but beneath the surface, tension had been building for weeks. As we sat across from each other, our voices escalated, fueled by a growing sense of frustration and disappointment. I felt the weight of my emotions pressing down on me, pushing me to confront the underlying issues that had been festering between us. "You always choose your friends over me," I blurted out, my voice tinged with hurt and anger. The words hung in the air, charged with the energy of years of pent-up feelings. Sarah's expression shifted, a mixture of surprise and defensiveness flashing across her face. "That's not fair," she shot back, her tone rising. "I love my friends, and I thought you understood that." In that moment, I could see the deep divide forming between us. It wasn't just about that night. It was about a pattern that had emerged over our relationship. Time and time again, I felt sidelined by her commitments to her friends. It was as if I was playing a supporting role in a story where I longed to be the lead. And while I admired her loyalty to them, I couldn't shake the feeling of being second best. The argument spiraled, and before I knew it, harsh words flew between us like arrows, each one aimed to hurt. I accused her of being selfish, of prioritizing social engagements over our relationship. She countered with claims that I was overly needy, that I didn't understand the importance of friendships outside of our romantic connection. The fight reached a boiling point, and in a moment of frustration and hurt, I declared, "Maybe we just aren't meant to be together anymore." As those words left my mouth, a silence enveloped us, heavy and thick. I could see the pain in Sarah's eyes, the realization of what had just been said. But it was too late. I had opened a door I couldn't close. The thought of ending things had been lingering in the back of my mind, but saying it aloud made it all too real. "Maybe you're right," she whispered, her voice cracking. In that instant, I felt a wave of regret wash over me. This wasn't how I wanted our story to end, but my fear of vulnerability and my desperate need for validation had taken over. I stood firm, convinced that I was making the right decision, convinced that walking away was better than remaining in a relationship that felt one-sided. We exchanged a few more words, but they were mere echoes of the emotions that had already spilled out. The conversation faded into a heavy silence, and I could feel the distance between us growing. We agreed to take some time apart, to figure things out, but deep down, I knew this was a turning point, a point of no return. As I left her apartment that night, I felt a strange mix of relief and heartache. I had taken control of my emotions, made a bold statement, but at what cost? The ride home was a blur, a cacophony of thoughts racing through my mind. I replayed our argument over and over, searching for clarity in the chaos. Had I truly made the right decision, or had my fear of commitment driven me to end something beautiful? Days turned into weeks, and the weight of the breakup hung heavily on my shoulders. The initial relief faded, replaced by an overwhelming sense of loss. I found myself missing Sarah, the laughter, the late-night conversations, the moments we shared that once felt so effortless. The emptiness was palpable, a reminder of what I had chosen to walk away from. It wasn't until months later, when a close friend of mine faced a personal crisis, that my perspective began to shift. In prioritizing their needs over my own, I found myself reflecting on my relationship with Sarah and the lessons I had learned, lessons I had overlooked in my desperation to be first. After the breakup with Sarah, I dove headfirst into my work, trying to fill the void she left behind. I threw myself into projects, convincing myself that distraction was the answer to my heartache. Yet, the emptiness lingered, often creeping in at the most unexpected moments. Then, just as I was beginning to find some semblance of normalcy, a close friend of mine faced a significant crisis, shaking me to my core. Jake, who had always been the life of the party and my confidant through thick and thin, found himself in a dark place. His father had fallen seriously ill, and the weight of that reality was almost too much for him to bear. As he opened up about his fears and the emotional toll it was taking on him, I felt a wave of urgency wash over me. This wasn't just a situation where he needed sympathy. He needed support, genuine, unwavering support. I knew that I had to be there for him, just as Sarah had always been there for her friends. So I dropped everything, putting my own needs on the back burner. Late-night phone calls, spontaneous visits, and hours spent listening to his fears became my new reality. It felt good to be there for someone who truly needed me, yet with each passing day, a nagging thought crept into my mind. Was I doing for Jake what I had failed to do for Sarah? As I spent more time with Jake, I couldn't shake the guilt of my previous decisions. I recalled the moments of frustration with Sarah, the countless times I had wished she would choose me over her friends. I had demanded a kind of loyalty that now felt misguided. The truth was hard to swallow. I had walked away from a relationship with someone who understood the value of friendship and loyalty, someone who had simply balanced her commitments in a way that I couldn't appreciate at the time. In those long hours spent with Jake, I began to see the bigger picture. Love isn't solely about prioritizing one person above all else. It's about accepting the entirety of their life, their friends, their passions, their struggles. And it dawned on me that Sarah's commitment to her friends wasn't a betrayal of our relationship. It was a reflection of her character. She had the capacity to love deeply and to build connections with those around her. Yet accepting this truth felt like a betrayal to my own feelings. I grappled with my emotions, torn between the regret of my decision and the desire to reach out to Sarah. Each moment spent supporting Jake was both cathartic and painful. I couldn't help but think about how things could have been different had I embraced Sarah's world rather than fighting against it. Late one night, as I sat on my couch contemplating the lessons I was learning through my friend's struggles, I decided to reach out to Sarah. I felt an overwhelming need to apologize, not just for the breakup, but for my inability to accept the person she was. I drafted a message, my heart racing as I poured my thoughts onto the screen. "Hey Sarah, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I realize now that I never truly understood your loyalty to your friends, and I'm sorry for not supporting that part of you. I'd love to talk if you're open to it." With a heavy heart, I hit send, not knowing what her response would be or if she would even want to hear from me. The ball was in her court now, and I felt both hopeful and terrified. Would she be willing to accept my apology, or had our past been buried too deeply for us to ever reconnect? As I waited for her response, I reflected on how much I had grown through this experience. Jake's crisis had opened my eyes to the complexity of love and relationships, forcing me to confront my own shortcomings. I realized that love is not a competition. It's a partnership that thrives when both individuals can embrace each other's worlds fully. As the days passed since I reached out to Sarah, I found myself reflecting more deeply on our relationship. Each moment spent with Jake, supporting him through his crisis, became a mirror, reflecting back the values I had once overlooked in my relationship with Sarah. I began to appreciate the significance of her commitment, not just to her friends, but to the ideals of loyalty and support that I had failed to recognize. It wasn't until I had the chance to truly contemplate Sarah's friendships that I understood their importance in her life. Sarah had always been fiercely devoted to her circle of friends, often going above and beyond to ensure they felt loved and valued. She would organize gatherings, offer a listening ear, and make sacrifices to be there when they needed her. In retrospect, I realized that this wasn't just a flaw in our relationship. It was a beautiful quality that I had mistaken for selfishness. The turning point came when I finally received a response from Sarah. She agreed to meet me for coffee, and my heart raced at the thought of reconnecting with her. As I prepared for our meeting, I couldn't help but rehearse what I wanted to say. I wanted her to know how much I regretted my previous behavior, how I had misinterpreted her loyalty as a lack of commitment to us. I was determined to express my newfound understanding and hopefully rebuild the bridge I had burned. When we finally sat across from each other, I noticed the subtle changes in her demeanor. She looked radiant, though there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. I could feel the tension in the air, and for a moment, I struggled to find the right words. But as she began to speak, her voice steady, I felt my own resolve strengthen. "I've missed you," she said softly, her gaze searching mine. "After everything that happened, I had time to think too. I realized I might have been a bit distant. I loved you, but I also loved my friends. They've been there for me through thick and thin." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I felt an overwhelming sense of empathy for the journey she had been on, a journey I had failed to see before. I had made her choose between me and her friends, as if love were a finite resource that could only be given to one person. I began to understand that Sarah's commitment to her friendships was not a threat to our relationship. Rather, it was a testament to her capacity to love and care. As we talked, I shared my thoughts about Jake's crisis, how it had illuminated the importance of being there for others, no matter the circumstances. I see now that love isn't just about wanting someone to prioritize you above everything else, I admitted. It's about understanding and supporting their entire world. I'm sorry I couldn't see that before. Sarah listened intently, her expression softening as I spoke. I always thought you understood that, she replied. I loved you for your strength, for how you'd support your friends. I just wish you could have seen that side of me too. In that moment, a wave of realization washed over me. I had been so focused on my own feelings of inadequacy that I had failed to recognize the strengths in Sarah's character. Her dedication to her friends was part of who she was, a person who could offer unwavering support and love, not just to me, but to everyone around her. This conversation marked a turning point in my understanding of relationships. It became clear that love flourishes in an environment of acceptance, where both partners can embrace their entire selves without fear of judgment or resentment. I realized that my previous perception of Sarah had been one-dimensional. I had only seen the parts of her that directly affected me, neglecting to appreciate the depth of her commitment to her friendships. As we wrapped up our coffee, I felt a sense of hope beginning to blossom. Maybe this wasn't the end for us after all. Perhaps there was a chance to rebuild what we had lost, to forge a new connection rooted in understanding and mutual respect. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but the potential for growth was undeniable. Jake's crisis unfolded like a thunderstorm, sudden and overwhelming. One moment, he was the dependable friend, always ready with a laugh or a piece of advice. The next, he was battling an emotional tempest as his father's health deteriorated. It was hard to watch someone I cared about face such a profound challenge, and it struck me how fragile life could be. When I first heard the news, I instinctively reached out to him. "Hey, I'm here for you," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. I knew he needed support, and I wanted to offer whatever I could. As I stepped into this role, I quickly realized the weight of his pain. Jake wasn't just dealing with the fear of losing his father. He was grappling with feelings of helplessness and anxiety about the future. In the days that followed, I found myself spending more time with him, often late into the night, discussing everything from childhood memories to his father's illness. Each conversation peeled back layers of both our lives, exposing raw emotions we rarely shared. I watched as Jake wrestled with his fears, often feeling as if he was losing control of his life. In those moments, I couldn't help but reflect on my own struggles, especially my recent breakup with Sarah. One evening, while sitting on his porch, Jake turned to me, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I don't know what I'd do without you right now," he confessed, his voice trembling. "It's like my world is falling apart, and I feel so alone." In that moment, I realized the profound impact that friendship could have, how essential it was to support each other through life's storms. His vulnerability struck a chord deep within me. I couldn't shake the thought of how I had pushed Sarah away when all she wanted was to be there for her friends, to balance her commitments. I felt a pang of regret, realizing that I had made her feel less important, as though her love for her friends diminished her love for me. As I supported Jake through his crisis, I began to draw parallels between his experience and my relationship with Sarah. Jake's situation illuminated the importance of loyalty and commitment, not just to a romantic partner, but to friends as well. I started to appreciate how love is often a mosaic, made up of various connections that enrich our lives. It dawned on me that I had been too focused on wanting Sarah's undivided attention instead of embracing the entirety of who she was. One night, as we wrapped up a particularly emotional conversation, I asked Jake, "How do you cope with this? How do you keep moving forward?" He took a deep breath and replied, "You have to lean on the people you care about. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a reminder that we're in this together." His words resonated with me. I felt the shift within my own perspective. I had been holding on to the idea that love meant exclusivity, that it was a contest where only one person could win. But Jake was right. True love, true friendship, meant sharing your burdens, allowing others into your life, and accepting that everyone has their own commitments. The more I reflected on Jake's crisis, the more I understood the strength of Sarah's character. She had always prioritized her friends, not out of neglect for our relationship, but out of a commitment to the people she loved. I realized I needed to confront my own insecurities, to accept that love isn't about possessing someone, but about mutual respect and understanding. In the weeks that followed, as Jake began to navigate his father's illness, I became more aware of the fragility of our own connections. I couldn't help but think about how I had jeopardized my relationship with Sarah over a misguided need for exclusivity. It was a lesson I desperately needed to learn, and one that I hoped would guide me toward rebuilding what I had lost. As Jake began to show signs of resilience, finding strength in the support of his friends and family, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. Perhaps I too could learn from this experience. Find a way to reach out to Sarah and rebuild our connection based on a deeper understanding of love. In the aftermath of my breakup with Sarah, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions that weighed heavily on my self-esteem. Initially, I felt a sense of relief, as if the tension had been lifted from my shoulders, but soon, that relief gave way to a crushing realization. I had lost someone who meant the world to me, and with her departure came an onslaught of self-doubt. Each day felt like an uphill battle. I found myself replaying our last argument in my mind, scrutinizing every word, every gesture, wondering if I had misread her intentions. Was I too demanding? I would ask myself. Did I fail to appreciate her friendships? Those questions echoed in my mind, gnawing at my confidence. I had always prided myself on being a supportive partner, but the breakup made me question my worth. The feelings of inadequacy grew more pronounced whenever I interacted with others. Friends would casually mention their significant others, and I'd nod along, masking my inner turmoil with a smile. Deep down, though, I felt like a shell of the person I used to be. The sense of failure was palpable. I had let my insecurities sabotage a beautiful relationship. As I supported Jake through his crisis, the contrast between my self-perception and his unwavering strength struck me even harder. Jake seemed to draw strength from his relationships, whether with family or friends. He was surrounded by love and support, while I felt isolated, caught in a cycle of self-pity. How did I end up here? I often wondered. The regret was suffocating, amplifying my feelings of inadequacy. In those moments of reflection, I began to acknowledge the impact of my choices on my self-esteem. The truth was, I had pushed Sarah away out of fear and insecurity. I had viewed her commitment to her friends as a threat rather than a strength. And now, as I dealt with the fallout of my decisions, I could see how my perception had warped my self-image. Instead of celebrating her loyalty, I had allowed jealousy and possessiveness to cloud my judgment. As time went on, I tried to engage in activities that reminded me of my worth outside of relationships. I reconnected with old friends and pursued hobbies that brought me joy. I took up jogging in the mornings, relishing the feeling of wind against my skin as I pushed myself further each day. These small victories became crucial reminders that my identity wasn't solely tied to my relationship with Sarah. Yet, there were still moments when I felt the pangs of loneliness creep in, particularly in the quiet hours of the night. I'd lie awake, haunted by memories of laughter shared and intimate conversations. The weight of regret hung over me like a dark cloud, often making it difficult to focus on the present. In seeking to rebuild my self-esteem, I also began journaling. Each night, I poured my thoughts onto the page, allowing myself to confront the emotions I had buried. "I am worthy of love," I wrote. "I am not defined by my mistakes." This practice helped me slowly shift my perspective from one of self-condemnation to self-acceptance. I learned to embrace my flaws and recognize that everyone makes mistakes. Through this journey of self-reflection, I also recognized the importance of forgiveness, not just for Sarah, but for myself. I had been so harsh on myself, believing that I had failed her and our relationship. But as I allowed myself to feel and process these emotions, I came to understand that growth often comes from hardship. It was a revelation. I could emerge from this experience stronger, more compassionate, and ultimately more open to love in all its forms. As I continued to heal, I began to see a light at the end of the tunnel, a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward. In the quiet moments, I found solace in the belief that I could learn from this chapter of my life. I was ready to confront my fears and insecurities, not just for myself, but for the sake of any future relationship I might have. And as I did so, I felt my self-esteem gradually rebuild, brick by brick, ready to embrace the love that was yet to come. The pang of regret struck me like a sudden gust of wind, a chilling reminder of the decisions I had made. Even as I attempted to move forward, the shadows of my past loomed large, particularly when I stumbled across reminders of my relationship with Sarah. Every song that played on the radio, every photo on social media felt like a dagger to my heart. The memories that once brought me joy now haunted me, whispering echoes of what could have been. One afternoon, while scrolling through my phone, I stumbled upon an old picture of us at a beach picnic, the sun setting in the background, casting a warm glow around us. We were laughing, carefree, caught in a moment of pure happiness. It was a stark contrast to how I felt now, heavy-hearted and burdened with what I had lost. I could almost hear Sarah's laughter, a sound that had once filled me with joy, but now pierced through me like a haunting melody. That evening, I found myself replaying our last argument in my mind, dissecting every word, every emotion. I recalled how my frustration had clouded my judgment, how I had allowed my insecurities to dictate my actions. If only I had communicated better, I thought, the thought gnawing at me. If only I had appreciated her friendships instead of feeling threatened. The weight of these realizations bore down on me, amplifying my sense of loss. It was during these moments of introspection that I felt the sharpest pang of regret. I had pushed away someone who had genuinely cared for me, someone who had always made an effort to balance her love for her friends with our relationship. My jealousy and possessiveness had skewed my perception, making me blind to the beauty of what we had shared. The more I reflected, the more I realized that I hadn't just lost Sarah. I had lost a part of myself in the process. Our relationship had been filled with laughter, shared dreams, and support. And now I was left grappling with the emptiness of what once was. It felt as if I had thrown away a priceless treasure, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I might never find anything like it again. In the quiet moments of the night, when the world was asleep and my thoughts roamed freely, I found myself wishing I could turn back time. I imagined scenarios where I had chosen differently, where I had opened my heart to Sarah's world instead of shutting her out. What if I had been more understanding? I pondered. What if I had celebrated her friendships instead of resenting them? These questions hung heavily in the air like unspoken words between us. The regret was suffocating, and I often found myself teetering on the edge of despair, grappling with the enormity of my choices. I wanted to reach out to her, to apologize, but pride held me back. What could I possibly say that would undo the hurt I had caused? Days turned into weeks, and while I continued to throw myself into my daily routine, the pangs of regret never quite faded. I started to notice how my self-esteem had taken a hit. I felt unworthy of love and affection, as if I had marked myself as undeserving of happiness. The memory of Sarah haunted me, but so did the realization that I had to confront my past if I ever wanted to find peace. I began to understand that regret, while painful, could also serve as a catalyst for growth. It forced me to confront my shortcomings and recognize the patterns in my behavior. Perhaps the pain I felt was a necessary part of the healing process. I realized that to move forward, I needed to learn from my mistakes, to accept that love means embracing all facets of someone, including their relationships with others. The regret weighed heavily on my heart, but it also sparked a desire for redemption. I wanted to reach out to Sarah, to express my sincere remorse for how I had acted. I yearned to let her know that I had finally grasped the significance of her friendships and how they were part of the beautiful tapestry that made her who she was. As I navigated these feelings, I felt a shift within me. It was a glimmer of hope, a small voice that whispered that maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild what I had lost. But first, I had to confront the pain of my past and find a way to channel that regret into something meaningful. After weeks of wrestling with my feelings of regret, I finally reached a tipping point. The weight of my actions felt unbearable, and the thought of not reaching out to Sarah haunted me. I knew I had to make amends, even if it felt daunting. Love meant embracing vulnerability, and that's exactly what I needed to do. I found myself sitting at my kitchen table one afternoon, staring at a blank piece of paper. It was both exhilarating and terrifying to think about reaching out to her. Would she even want to hear from me? Would she remember the good times? Or would my past mistakes overshadow everything? I took a deep breath, letting the silence envelop me as I tried to organize my thoughts. Finally, I began to write. I poured my heart onto the page, expressing my sincere apologies and reflecting on how I had let my insecurities dictate my actions. Sarah, I've had time to think about everything that happened between us, I wrote, my hand shaking slightly as the words flowed. I realize now that I failed to appreciate you and the love you brought into my life. I took your commitment for granted, and I'm truly sorry. With each word, I felt a sense of catharsis wash over me. I recalled moments we had shared, Our late-night talks, the adventures we embarked on together, the way her eyes sparkled with passion when she spoke about her dreams. Those memories reminded me of what I had lost, and my heart ached at the thought of never experiencing them again. After sealing the letter, I hesitated. I had been so focused on crafting the perfect apology that I hadn't considered what would happen next. Would she respond? Would she even want to? The uncertainty gnawed at me, but I knew I couldn't let fear hold me back any longer. I placed the letter in an envelope and addressed it to her last known address, my heart racing as I walked to the mailbox. Days passed, and with each sunrise, I felt a growing sense of anxiety mixed with anticipation. I checked my phone constantly, hoping for a message that would signal her response. The waiting was excruciating. I was trapped in a limbo of uncertainty, reliving our shared moments and the hurt I had caused. The reality of my choices loomed over me like a dark cloud, but I clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, she would be willing to talk. Then, one evening, I received a notification that made my heart skip a beat. It was an email from Sarah. My fingers trembled as I clicked it open, my heart racing. "Hey," it began. "I received your letter." I felt a mixture of relief and dread as I read her words. She had been surprised to hear from me, but appreciated my honesty. "It's taken me some time to process everything too," she wrote. "I think it's important we talk." The relief washed over me like a warm wave. She was open to communication, a chance to bridge the gap that had formed between us. I quickly replied, suggesting we meet for coffee, a place that held so many memories for us both. I couldn't wait to see her again, to finally express the depth of my remorse face to face. As the day approached, a swirl of emotions enveloped me: excitement, anxiety, hope. What would I say when I saw her? Would she forgive me? Would we be able to navigate the delicate waters of our past? The thought of seeing her again both thrilled and terrified me. On the day of our meeting, I arrived at the cafe early, my heart racing as I watched people come and go. Finally, I saw her walk through the door, and time seemed to stand still. She looked just as beautiful as I remembered, her smile still holding that warmth I had missed. We exchanged awkward greetings, but beneath the surface, I could feel the weight of unspoken words between us. As we settled into a booth, I took a deep breath and began to speak. "Thank you for meeting me," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I've thought a lot about what happened, and I genuinely regret my actions." Sarah listened intently, her expression a mix of understanding and caution. It was clear she had her own feelings to express, and I braced myself for what might come next. As we talked, I could see the familiar spark in her eyes, a flicker of the connection we once had. But I also sensed the distance that had formed between us, a barrier created by pain and misunderstanding. We shared our feelings, our regrets, and slowly began to peel back the layers of hurt that had built up since our breakup. Sarah reminded me of the importance of embracing each other's worlds, of understanding that love isn't about possession, but about acceptance. Love means accepting the entirety of a person, including their relationships with others, she said, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. I realized how right she was. In my desire to be the center of her universe, I had forgotten that true love thrives when both partners feel free to grow and nurture their individual identities. By the end of our conversation, we had laid the groundwork for healing. While we didn't know what the future held, I felt a renewed sense of hope, a possibility that our paths might intertwine again someday. Reaching out to Sarah wasn't just an apology, it was a step toward understanding the depth of love, and the importance of mutual support in any relationship. In that moment, I learned that sometimes vulnerability can pave the way for healing, and that love, though tested, can still endure. As our conversation unfolded, it became clear that Sarah had been doing a lot of soul-searching during our time apart. The pain of our breakup had not only left scars, but had also provided her with valuable insights about love and relationships. With each word she spoke, I felt a mix of admiration and regret. This was the woman I had loved, and her wisdom shone brightly even amidst the shadows of our past. "You know," she began thoughtfully, "I've come to realize that love is more than just a feeling. It's a commitment to understanding and accepting someone, flaws and all. When I prioritize my friendships, it's not because I care for you any less. It's because I believe that having a strong support system makes me a better partner." Her voice was calm, yet filled with passion, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. I listened intently, absorbing her words like a sponge. It was as if she were holding a mirror up to my previous misconceptions. "I had always thought love meant putting each other first," I admitted, "but now I see how that might have suffocated you." Sarah nodded, her expression a mix of empathy and resolve. "Exactly. Love should lift you up, not confine you. It's about finding balance, about nurturing each other's independence while also being there for one another." Her perspective challenged everything I thought I knew about relationships. I had been so focused on needing her attention and affection that I had failed to recognize the importance of her friendships. "When I saw you prioritize your needs over mine, it hurt," I confessed. "But now I understand that you were doing what you needed to thrive." Sarah smiled gently, her warmth melting away some of the lingering tension between us. "It's essential to have a life outside of each other," she said. "That doesn't mean we love less. It means we have more to bring to the table. It's about sharing our lives while still being our own individuals." As she spoke, I could feel the walls I had built around my heart begin to crumble. I had been blinded by my insecurities, convinced that her friendships were a threat to our relationship. But now I was beginning to see the beauty in her connections. "I wish I had understood this sooner," I murmured, the weight of my past decisions heavy in the air. Sarah leaned in closer, her eyes locking onto mine. "It's never too late to learn and grow," she said softly. "Regret can be a powerful teacher, but it's what we do with those lessons that truly matters. We can't change the past, but we can use our experiences to shape a better future." Her words resonated deeply within me, igniting a spark of hope that had long been dimmed. "I want to move forward, not just for us, but for myself," I said, feeling a newfound determination. "I want to be the kind of partner who appreciates all aspects of your life, who encourages you to chase your dreams and maintain your friendships." Sarah's smile widened, a reflection of the understanding that had blossomed between us. "That's the spirit," she replied. "Love should never be a limitation. It should be a celebration of who we are together and apart." In that moment, I realized how much I had underestimated the strength of our bond. We had shared dreams, laughter, and love, yet I had allowed my insecurities to overshadow everything. Now, as Sarah shared her insights, I could feel the foundation of our relationship shifting. We were no longer just two people caught in a cycle of hurt. We were individuals who had learned from our experiences, ready to embrace the future with open hearts. As we continued to talk, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The conversation wasn't just about mending what had been broken, it was about evolving, about understanding that love is a journey rather than a destination. We had both grown in different ways, and I was grateful that Sarah was willing to share her wisdom with me. In those moments of vulnerability and honesty, I learned that real love encompasses acceptance, growth, and the courage to confront our fears. It's about recognizing that our lives are intertwined, yet each of us must nurture our individuality. Sarah's wisdom illuminated a path forward, a way to rebuild not only our relationship, but also myself. After my heartfelt conversation with Sarah, I found myself reflecting on the lessons I had learned about love, commitment, and acceptance. Although it felt bittersweet to acknowledge that we might not end up together again, I realized that our discussion had opened the door to new possibilities in my life. It was time to embrace change and seek out the happiness I deserved. As I ventured into this new chapter, I made a conscious effort to focus on myself. I started exploring activities that brought me joy: hiking, painting, and even trying my hand at cooking. These pursuits became a form of therapy, allowing me to channel my emotions into something productive. Each hike along the trails reminded me of the beauty in nature, and every brushstroke on canvas helped me express feelings I had buried for too long. During this period of self-discovery, I also made it a point to reconnect with friends and family. I spent more time with those who uplifted me, who reminded me of my worth and potential. It felt liberating to engage in meaningful conversations, to laugh and share stories without the weight of my past relationship hanging over me. This support system played a crucial role in my healing journey. It wasn't long before I began to feel the stirrings of new love. I met Claire at a local art gallery opening, drawn to her infectious enthusiasm and the spark in her eyes. She was vibrant and full of life, with a creative spirit that resonated with my own. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, and I found myself captivated by her insights and passion for art. As we spent more time together, I discovered that Claire had a heart that matched her creativity. She was compassionate, understanding, and fiercely independent, qualities I admired deeply. Unlike my previous relationship, where I often felt overshadowed by insecurities, being with Claire felt like breathing fresh air. She encouraged me to pursue my interests while embracing hers, and it became evident that our connection was rooted in mutual respect and admiration. With each date, I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't thought possible. Claire had a way of making me feel seen and valued, allowing me to express my thoughts and fears without judgment. Our adventures together, visiting museums, exploring new restaurants, and laughing until our sides hurt, felt exhilarating. I realized that love wasn't about losing myself, but about finding someone who encouraged me to be my best self. Still, the lessons I had learned from Sarah lingered in the back of my mind. I was determined not to repeat past mistakes. I knew that love was about embracing each other's worlds, and I was committed to nurturing our relationship in a way that honored both our individualities. Claire and I had open conversations about our goals, dreams, and values, ensuring that we were on the same page as we navigated this new territory together. As weeks turned into months, my heart began to heal from the wounds of the past. The pangs of regret that once haunted me faded into memories, replaced by the warmth and joy of new experiences. I learned to appreciate the beauty of love without the shadows of doubt and insecurity clouding my vision. With Claire, I felt hopeful for the future, an exciting journey filled with possibilities. I also understood the importance of taking things one step at a time. While I cherished the connection I had with Claire, I remained aware of the lessons I had learned from my relationship with Sarah. The insights about commitment, trust, and the significance of balancing independence and togetherness shaped my approach to love. In this new chapter, I discovered that happiness wasn't merely about being in a relationship. It was about embracing life fully, appreciating the journey, and finding joy in the little things. With Claire by my side, I felt a renewed sense of purpose, a desire to grow and evolve together. Looking back, I realized that my journey with Sarah had not been in vain. It had taught me invaluable lessons about love, vulnerability, and acceptance. I felt grateful for the experiences that shaped me, as they had ultimately led me to this beautiful connection with Claire, a love built on trust, respect, and shared dreams. As I stand at this crossroads in my life, reflecting on the journey that has brought me here, I realize that every twist and turn has played a vital role in shaping who I am today. My relationship with Sarah was a chapter filled with intense emotions, valuable lessons, and moments of clarity that ultimately paved the way for a brighter future. The pain of our breakup had been profound, but it also ignited a journey of self-discovery and growth that I never anticipated. Understanding Sarah's commitment to her friends opened my eyes to the importance of nurturing not just romantic relationships, but also the connections we forge with those around us. I had initially viewed her friendships as a threat to our relationship, failing to see that they were an integral part of who she was. In recognizing this, I learned the invaluable lesson that true love encompasses acceptance of a partner's entire world, not just the parts that revolve around us. Through my experience, I discovered the significance of prioritizing my own happiness and well-being. The crisis faced by my friend served as a poignant reminder of the value of support and compassion in relationships. I learned to embrace the strength that comes from being there for others, understanding that love isn't a finite resource. It grows when shared and nurtured. With Claire, I have found a love that celebrates both of our individualities while fostering a connection that feels authentic and fulfilling. Our journey together is built on mutual respect, encouragement, and open communication. I no longer feel the weight of insecurity dragging me down. Instead, I feel empowered to be myself, while also encouraging her to thrive. This relationship has become a testament to the beauty of love when it is grounded in understanding and acceptance. As I look toward the future, I carry the lessons learned from my past experiences close to my heart. The regret I once felt for leaving Sarah has transformed into gratitude for the insights it provided. I've learned that every relationship, no matter how challenging, offers lessons that contribute to our growth. My journey with Sarah, marked by moments of pain and clarity, has ultimately led me to a healthier understanding of love. In this new chapter with Claire, I am committed to embracing love in its entirety. I strive to maintain a balance between our shared moments and the individual pursuits that make us who we are. This journey has taught me that love is not about possession or control. It is about partnership, support, and a willingness to embrace the complexities of life together. As I move forward, I feel a renewed sense of hope and excitement. Life is filled with endless possibilities, and I am eager to explore what lies ahead. The love I share with Claire is a reflection of the growth I have undergone, a beautiful reminder that love can thrive when nurtured with understanding and acceptance. I've learned to cherish every moment, both big and small, recognizing that true happiness is found in the journey, not just the destination. Whether it's a quiet evening spent painting together, a spontaneous adventure to a new place, or simply sharing our dreams, each experience is a treasure that enriches our lives. In the end, I know that love is a journey, not a destination. It evolves, grows, and transforms as we navigate life's challenges and triumphs together. I am grateful for the lessons learned, the love discovered, and the beautiful future that awaits. With Claire by my side, I feel ready to embrace whatever comes next, knowing that love, in all its forms, will always find a way to shine through.